Hi, this is Edward Troxel. In this tutorial we're going to handle a special rendering request. Thanks for the video. I'm looking for a script that can render out videos on multiple tracks. Looking for a script that lets me render regions on multiple tracks. Imagine 3 video tracks and 3 regions. The result would be 9 files, and then gives examples of some file names. So let's look and see what it would take to change our rendering script to add this special option and get these 9 files, in this particular case, created. We're going to create a version that only uses 2 tracks and 3 regions, so we will create 6 files. So let's begin today's tutorial where we left off in the last tutorial. Previously we had 2 render options here. One was a full render, one was a region render. Let me move this down a little bit and we'll add another radio button, and this will be for our special render. So let's pop this in here. We'll name it Special Render, and then we'll change the actual name to RDO Special. So now we have a new button that's going to act with these other 2 buttons. And we go to our code over here and we need to add our new code. So previously we had if RDO full was checked, and here we had if RDO region was checked. Now we're going to add in if RDO special dot checked. Instead of me putting all of the code right here, I'm going to actually create a routine this time to handle all this code, so that instead of having multiple lines of code, we only have 1. So let's add our 1 line of code here, and we're going to call it our do special render, and we need to pass it the my renderer and the my template that we got from up here, so that we don't have to look them up again. We're going to try something a little different today, and I'm just going to paste this routine in, and then we'll go through it and show what each step does. So we have our do special render function that we've created. We are not going to return anything, so it is a void. And then we are passing it the renderer, which is my renderer, and the render template, which is my template. The next thing we need to do is look at each of the tracks. So we're going to go through every one of the tracks, and we're going to mute them because we want to look at them 1 track at a time for this particular special render. Then, after we've gone through all the tracks, we're going to have to go through all the tracks again. And what we're going to do is we're going to unmute this 1 track, and then we're going to set a variable that is the track index, only we're going to add 1 to it. That way we get the actual index number that matches what we see on the screen, because if you remember, the tracks start with number 0 internally, and so we want the first track to show as number 1. Now let's go through all of the regions that are on the timeline, and once again I'm going to set me a region number, and I'm going to add 1 to it because they start with 0 internally, but displayed on the screen they show as 1. So instead of having 0, 1, and 2, we'll have 1, 2, and 3. Next we need to set our file name. So we're going to do it a little bit different this time. We're going to start by getting the directory out of the directory box, and then we're going to look at our region label name. In this particular case, I'm going to say if there is no label, then I'm going to add to the full file name the word region and then the region number. Otherwise, I'm going to put in the label. That way, if they have named the label, then I can use the name that they've put in, but if you have not named the label, then it will just put the region number. After that, I'm going to take the full file name and I'm going to add the track and the track number, and then we'll put another space in there, and then I'm going to go ahead and add in the file name that was listed. This part is the same as the previous versions. Then, just like above when we were doing our regions, here we were getting our region position and length. We're going to do the same thing down here. We get our region position and length, and we call the render routine, and that will render out just that 1 track for just that 1 region. Then after we're done with all the regions for that track, we need to mute that track again, and it will go through and unmute the next track and continue along the way. When we have finished, then we need to go through all the tracks one more time and unmute all the tracks. Now please note that if you had some tracks muted originally, they will no longer be muted when the routine gets finished. So that is one thing to note. We did not look to see, are any tracks muted before I mute them all, so that we could put them back into their original state. So now let's build this. The build has succeeded. Now we'll start Vegas. So now I have a project here with 3 clips on it. This one has a region called Stairlights. I have a region called Cake, and then I have an unnamed region so that we can see what happens when the region is unnamed. Like I said, we have 2 tracks, so we should end up with 6 files. We're going to end up with 3 with video only and 3 with audio only. Let's run our script. So the first thing we do is select which template we want to use. I'm going to select a simple template here. Let's just do a 1080-60i. Let's choose our save directory, which is drive C. Let's go ahead and pick this watch render test folder, and we'll call this a special test. And then down here we need to click on special render, and then let's click on render. Okay, we see it's rendering the first one, which is called Stairlights Track 1. And then it went ahead and added the special test. And then now it's doing Cake Track 1. And then now it's doing Region 3 Track 1 because the region did not have a name. Now it's doing them all again, Stairlights. Now it's on Track 2. And it's doing the cake now for track 2. And finally region 3, since it was not named, on track 2. And now when we go into our watch render test folder, we can see we have our track 1, track 2, track 1, track 2, track 1, and track 2. And that's how you can modify the rendering routine so that you can get the regions or the sections or the tracks or whatever you want in specific. And notice that the do render command did not change in any of the situations. You just pass it the parameters that you want and make sure the proper things are muted or not muted, and you can determine what exactly gets rendered. Please sign up at www.JETDV.com and subscribe on YouTube to get further notifications on when new videos are presented.